So, today we're going to deconstruct a story that asks a really terrifying question. What happens when our darkest, most hidden thoughts are suddenly given ultimate power? It's a journey deep into the human mind, a look at the promise of progress, and a warning about the monsters that might just be lurking right under the surface. You've probably heard those iconic lines before. They set such a chilling stage, right? They promise an adventure that reaches, and I quote, from the inner mind to the outer limits. And the story we're diving into today takes that so literally. It all starts with humanity's desperate reach for the stars. But, as you'll see, it ends with a terrifying journey into the darkness inside ourselves. Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in a future that honestly feels a little too possible. It's a world where humanity's constant need for more has finally caught up with it. The search for a new source of power, it's not about progress anymore. It's about sheer survival. I mean, the picture it paints is just bleak. The engine that drove the modern world has completely run out of gas. The seas of oil are bone dry. The coal fields have been hollowed out, and every last scrap of rare earth material has been plundered. The bottom line? Starvation is knocking at the door. The planet literally has nothing left to give. So when your own world is tapped out, where do you turn? You look up. The only hope left is this incredibly audacious plan to go out and mine the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter for the fuel to restart civilization. The big problem, though? That kind of resource is way beyond the reach of any machine we could build. But it might not be beyond the reach of a single, focused human thought. And this is where we meet our protagonist, Harold J. Finley. And this guy is a walking contradiction. On the one hand, he's this brilliant academic who believes he's cracked the code to channeling cosmic energy. But on the other hand, at home, he's living this life of quiet humiliation, constantly belittled by his wife, who just sees him as some nobody pestering the space people with his silly ideas. Of course, that quiet, frustrating life isn't going to last. Finley takes his wild theory to the actual space project, and in doing so, he kicks off this incredible ascent that's going to give him all the power and respect he's ever wanted, but it's going to come at a terrible, unforeseen cost. Okay, so this is the sci-fi magic right here, the link gate. Now, it's not a power source on its own. The way Finley explains it, his brain just acts like a lens. By using his own thought patterns, he can take all this electromagnetic energy that's just flowing around the universe and focus it into a single, controllable beam. It's a revolutionary idea, and a frankly terrifying one. And the crazy thing is, it works. In a demonstration, Finley proves he can control a directional force of 500,000 kilowatts. I mean, think about that. That's enough raw power to run an entire aircraft carrier, and it's all being channeled and directed by one guy's mind. He literally saves the whole asteroid mining project from getting shut down. But even after demonstrating this world-changing power, Finley just can't escape the petty frustrations of his life. His own dean at the college dismisses this monumental achievement as just a search for adventure and refuses to release him from his teaching contract. And every little dismissal, every belittling comment just adds another layer of resentment that's building up deep, deep inside him. And this is where the story shifts. It takes this really dark, psychological turn. Finley's problems with the outside world start to seem small compared to the much more dangerous conflict that's starting to emerge from within him. We're talking about the monster within. A psychiatrist on the project team, a Dr. Hinderman, basically asks the billion-dollar question. The human brain isn't just some clean, logical computer, right? It's messy, it's full of emotions and fears and old resentments, all these dark secrets we keep locked away. So he asks, what happens when that part of the mind suddenly gets its hands on the controls to this kind of power? You see, the real villain of this story isn't some alien or rogue AI. No, it's the hostile subconscious. It's that dark part of our nature that we all have, that we all try to suppress. And the terrifying idea here is that this hidden part of Finley, which is just filled with years of bitterness, can now wield cosmic power, and he doesn't even know it's happening. And then, Dr. Heinerman's worst fears become a horrifying reality. First, Finley's wife, Vera, is violently thrown off a ladder by some invisible force. Then, Dean Radcliffe, the man who was standing in Finley's way, is killed by this swirling entity of pure destructive energy. Finley puts the pieces together, and he has this absolutely horrifying realization. These weren't accidents. They were assassinations, carried out by his own mind. This realization completely changes Finley. He's no longer the scientist on the verge of a breakthrough. He's a man who has just discovered there's a monster living inside him. And his mission is no longer about harnessing his power. It's about warning the world about its true danger. He goes to his wife, Vera, and he confesses everything. And in this really chilling moment, he just lays it all out on the table. He tells her there's a hidden, hateful part of his own brain that committed these acts. He's a murderer who wasn't even aware he'd committed a crime. And how does Vera react? With total disbelief. And in this moment of just crushing irony, she throws the exact same insults at him that have been fueling his subconscious rage for years. She calls him a little man, a nobody. She insists he has no power. She's completely blind to the truth, even as it's tearing their world apart. So this sets up the core philosophical debate of the whole story. You've got Finley, who is absolutely horrified by what he's become, warning everyone that this kind of power is too much for our flawed minds to handle. He says we're all part mad. But then you have the project leaders, and all they see is opportunity. They're asking, should potential risk ever be allowed to stand in the way of human progress? It's one man's conscience against the relentless march of science. And that brings us to the breaking point, the tragic climax. The project leaders, they've heard Finley's warning, but they are just blinded by what they think they can achieve. This is the moment where ambition, power, and fear all collide, and the results are absolutely devastating. The project leaders make a fateful choice. They completely dismiss Finley's pleas. They decide to go ahead and give another man, an astronaut, the same link gate operation. And to make sure Finley can't consciously interfere, they sedate him. They're betting that his subconscious wants the project to succeed. They actually believe they can control the uncontrollable. They were wrong. So wrong. They made a massive miscalculation. Because even under sedation, Finley's conscious moral self understands the catastrophe that's about to be unleashed. If another mind, with its own hidden baggage and resentments, gets this power, the consequences are just unimaginable. And he realizes there's only one way to stop it. These are his last words. In one final, desperate act of will, he makes the ultimate sacrifice. He knows that as long as he exists, the monster inside him exists, and the power it holds is a threat to everyone. So he turns that infinite cosmic power inward, on himself. And the end is absolute. There's no big explosion, no fireball, just a silent, complete erasure. Finley, the scientists, the lab, the entire project, all of it is just wiped from existence. The man who could move asteroids uses his very last act to unmake himself and the terrible power he unleashed on the world. And the story leaves us with this incredibly powerful, sobering thought. The problem was never the power itself, it was the flawed human mind that tried to wield it. Before we can reach for the stars, it says, we first have to conquer the darkness within ourselves. It's a timeless warning that really forces you to ask, what monsters might be lurking in our own subconscious, just waiting for their turn at the controls? Thanks for joining me on this one.